If we're not able to finish this by 6 o'clock, I'm going to ask that the Commission vote to extend this to the next meeting that we have. I think it's February 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. All right, and the next two people that are going to speak, first is Christopher Cini and then James Rollers. So, Mr. Rollers, if you could be over on this side of the room so we don't have to wait. Go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Christopher Cini. I don't live on the Cape. I live in Westboro, Mass. But I do represent a number of people who live here, about 65 in total. Some live in Falmouth near Wind 1 and 2, and some live in Bourne and Brewster. I did ask the staff if they would put into your files a letter dated January 19th. I won't review it. It's there, and I hope you have a chance to take a look at it. I support the new threshold. I think it's a very important measure that you're taking. 65 feet is tall. Structures that are that tall are, just by virtue of their size, something that go beyond one municipality and really are a county-wide importance. Second of all, I was critical of the standards that had been promulgated previously and that went up to the Assembly of Delegates. I congratulate the staff and I thank the staff for the work they've done on this set of standards. I think it is greatly improved. I think the 3,000-foot setback is a compromise. It's not perfect, but I do have many clients who live within 3,000 feet of Wind 1 and Wind 2 and live within 3,000 feet of where there might be other turbines. And I think it is a fair distance. I think it is very helpful. I also think that when you read the noise provision that we have here, we can see that with the noise study, there will be consideration of possibly reducing operating procedures if there are further noise complaints. So where there is a turbine that is built and there are noise disturbances, if they are further away than 3,000 feet, there may still be an opportunity through mitigation or operational controls to try to alleviate the distress. So taken in its entirety, I think this is a remarkable improvement, and again, I applaud the Commission. I do think that if you look at the draft outline of what is to come in the technical bulletin, it's a lot. Ambient noise, amplitude modulation, low frequency sound, how we're going to measure, how we're going to test, where we will test. In the materials I left you, I gave you a copy of something I've been working on for about 6 months, which was originally a draft Board of Health regulation, and it tries to grapple with some of these very questions. You're free to use it, change it in any way possible if it would be helpful in writing the technical bulletin. And I do think that that should happen quickly, because I think if we have a new standard, which is 3,000 feet, but we'll take a look at an acoustical study, and we don't have those parameters available to us, the parties are going to argue about where did we measure ambient, or at what time of day, or in what season. And so the technical bulletin is very critical to do as quickly as possible. Finally, as you go forward, and maybe there would be revisions to these standards, I would think about smaller turbines, less than 1 megawatt. The Mass Maritime Academy is a good example. That's a wind turbine of 660 kilowatts. That is capable of producing some distress from noise, and yet because we only have the noise setback related to larger turbines, probably the only setback your Commission could apply would be the safety zone, which would be about 360 feet. That might not be enough. So it's possible that as you go forward, perhaps in some revisions in the future, you would think about, well, for turbines just under 1 megawatt, 900 kilowatts or 800 or 700, how could we also make sure that there is at least that initial starting separation that I think gives us a good fair chance to eliminate the distressing noise. But again, I applaud your efforts. I know this is very difficult, and I think it's going to be okay. And I would say to my clients who are here and others that we need to keep in mind what this fits into. It fits into the regional policy plan. And the regional policy plan is very targeted. It's targeted to distributional use of energy and either encouraging or requiring developers of new office buildings or industrial parks to plan for and install capacity to generate some of the electricity that new building will need on site through solar, geothermal, or wind, or any other technology. That is a certain governor to these minimum standards all by themselves, because that's where the minimum standards fit into. We're not drafting minimum standards for power plants right now. We're drafting minimum standards that fit into the energy section of the regional policy plan, which is an excellent document and has a very worthwhile and achievable goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Rogers
of Sandwich and Wellfleet. At the meeting just before Christmas of the Assembly of Delegates, the delegate from Truro, whose name I don't know, said that this issue is really beyond us. I thought those were very honest words. And I would suggest that this issue at present is really beyond the Cape Cod Commission. I wonder if Mr. Nowicki could address the issue of a DCPC briefly for land-based turbines. Certainly, if we are doing a DCPC for offshore turbines for the sake of, I presume, view sheds and fishing, we can do one for land-based turbines for the sake of residents who live here. What is the rush? Why can we not step back, take some time, and justify this project economically, scientifically, from a community point of view? I wonder, Mr. Nowicki, if you could address the DCPC briefly. Thank you.
The issue of a district of critical planning concern has come up. It came up in front of the Assembly. I think at the first meeting that came up, they were supportive of it. In order for it to be a regional district of critical planning concern, there are only a certain number of entities that can nominate that, the Assembly being one of them. The Assembly, since subsequent to that, has backed off that designation. That 12-month moratorium is a 12-month moratorium, but having had 20 years of experience with DCPCs, many times that moratorium is in place, and at the end of the moratorium, no regulations come forward. So if we, and it's not that we're starting from scratch, and I don't think that this is beyond us. We've had a lot of experience with wind turbines and wind energy over the years. I think we are ready to go forward with some common sense standards now, understanding again that it's not the only bite at the apple that we're going to get. If we need to make improvements, we can. We have that opportunity to make improvements. The other issue is, and you know, one other speaker brought up, you know, sort of quoted me as saying we don't want to be an economic drag on these projects. What we don't want to do is add to the cost of these projects. That's not what we're in the business of doing. And they said that that I only supported legally defensible regulations. That's my fiduciary responsibility, is to support legally defensible regulations. And I would be doing a disservice to anyone by promoting an illegal ordinance, because it would be unsustainable, it would be turned over in court, and the protections you thought you had would be taken away from you. Additionally, as it relates to sort of our interaction with the state and the towns, those are real. They're not political considerations in the negative sense of that. They're real considerations. And an overreaction, an unjustified reaction, given where we know the state is coming from, may draw a response from the state that would eliminate our ability to regulate these entirely. So I have cautioned, as I've cautioned the Commission, as I've cautioned the Assembly, as I will caution everyone here today, we need to be reasonable in our consideration of how to move forward and what's going to be most effective. And so that's why those considerations, they're part of being effective. We could take extraordinary steps today only to have them overturned by other entities that we have to deal with tomorrow. And so that's what we're trying to do. And so we're not looking at any particular project. We're trying to use the studies, we're trying to use our experience, and this is what we do. We produce these kind of ordinances and regulations, and we implement them through our regional policy plan. And that's the process that's in place. And I understand people's lack of familiarity with the process, and I certainly understand people's skepticism about government action in general. But at some point, we have to work together.
Microphone, please. Microphone, please. Microphone, please.
Keith Mann.
Hi, Keith Mann from Bourne. Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. I just want to say that I definitely support renewable energy and responsible development of wind. But I'm afraid these MPSs don't support wind at all. They prohibit development. I'm sure it's not intentional that that's what they're written for, but I don't see how projects would get forward if this is the first standard they have to try to meet. Renewable energy around the world is the fastest growing, or wind turbines is the fastest growing source of new energy around the world. And there's a reason for it. Science and politicians all agree that the benefits of renewable energy outweigh the drawbacks. And I understand there are some drawbacks to the wind turbines, but there are drawbacks to any source of energy we take. And we've got to remember that. We're on Cape Cod. We're sort of nice. It's a beautiful location, beautiful area. I think we take it for granted. We are consuming power, and resources are being depleted in other parts of the world or nation that don't need to be if we can utilize the resource that we have here. People talk about visual impacts, and you know, that they shouldn't have to have these visual impacts. Well, it's a subjective thing. A lot of people think wind turbines are beautiful. There are many who don't like them, but I see on the wall over here, you have a picture of the Bourne Bridge. And that's an icon of Cape Cod. There's more steel and concrete in that bridge than a whole host of wind farms. A wind turbine may indeed be taller than that. I've seen presentations showing wind turbines twice as tall as the bridge. But that, if you blade wind turbines on their side, that bridge is more than twice as long of any wind turbines and has much more surface area. It has more lights, it has more noise. Each truck going over that bridge is probably producing more decibels than a wind turbine, including low frequency and infrasound. Those wind turbines, even though they produce those sound ranges, they're well below what the ambient noise is. I think I've heard people refer to the Bourne Bridge. I mean, that's, like I say, it's something that's well accepted. We've come to love it. I hope that wind turbines can be that as well. I'd urge that if the Cape Cod Commission has a need to set up minimum standards, that they work with a credible organization such as CEC. They're scientific, and they can provide credible information if there's a need to go this way. But as it is now, I hope that these standards are not approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. David Moriarty.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to thank the Commission for inviting us all to share our thoughts on the matter. I'd just like to take a moment before we start. You know, it was 50 years ago today that this country of ours elected one of the greatest presidents we ever had. He was one of our own. And it's just so exciting, and I feel so blessed that I've been able to live 50 years on Cape Cod without seeing a goddamn wind turbine, okay? I love Cape Cod. I love the land I live on and the sea that surrounds me. It's in every fiber of my being. This is my home you're talking about, putting industrial machines in. These are my neighbors you're torturing. This is a serious issue, and it needs serious consideration. And I'm very disappointed with the Commission coming back with these regs. I know, I believe in my heart of all hearts that we need a one-year moratorium on wind turbines. There's no doubt that we need it, just from the conversation we've had today in this room. There's no doubt we need a one-year moratorium on wind turbines on Cape Cod. And I'm going to stay calm. You got to breathe. This is my life. This is my world. I'm a contractor. I'm a realtor. Unless I can grow gills, I've got nowhere to go. I've lived here my entire life. I've watched this whole region be totally destructive. I've watched overbuilding, no sewering, poisoning of our drinking water, poisoning of all our estuaries, ruining all our shellfish, our fishing. Now we're going to take away the golden goose that pays everybody's mortgage here on Cape Cod. Tourism, we're going to take that from us? What do you think we're going to eat? How do you think we make a living here on Cape Cod? There's no industry here. It's tourism. It's second homeowners. What the hell are we doing here today? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Tom, yes, excuse me.
Just for the record, nobody at the Cape Cod Commission is torturing anybody. And nobody at the Cape Cod Commission is proposing any sort of wind energy conversion facility. What you have in place now are no regulations, none. What's being proposed is an opportunity to make any proposals that come forward and give you the opportunity that you have today that maybe you feel you haven't had in the past. And I think it's disrespectful to the public servants up here to actually come up to that, approach that podium and accuse anyone of torturing anyone or suggest in any way that the Cape Cod Commission is going to develop it. 200, every member up here is appointed to represent 221,000 people, and they all have a seat at the table every time we have a public hearing. This is the third public hearing that we've had this month.
Well, we'd like a seat at the table the next time you decide to make a proposal.
You had a seat at the table. This is the third public hearing. This is your seat. This is your opportunity. You weren't at any of the last two.
All right.
It was on every, I've been at every meeting.
He's not interested.
Thank you. Tom, I can't read your last. Gueno? Is there a Tom here? Garino?
From the town of Moore. He already spoke earlier. He spoke earlier.
Okay, thank you. David Young? Not here. Fran Porter? Not here. Tudor McPherson? Is he gone?
Tudor, did you say?
Yes.
Is my first name, and John Littman has already passed me what I wrote. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah Cote? Did I say your last name wrong, Mr. Tudor?
Sorry.
Good evening, and thank you for this opportunity to comment. My name is Sarah Cody. I'm a resident of Sandwich and the executive assistant at Clean Power Now in Hyannis. I just have a couple bullet points. I'll be brief. I wanted to reference the December 2009 American Wind Energy Association and Canada Wind Energy Association study. They commissioned an expert panel to review all literature on perceived health effects from wind turbines. One author, Dr. Robert McConey, a research scientist at MIT, has stated, "There is no evidence that the sounds or subsounds or vibrations emitted from wind turbines have any direct physiological effects on humans." That study is available online. Another point, for more than 30 years, people have been living near 50,000 turbines operating in Europe and 30,000 in North America. The majority have had a positive experience with no ill effects. We cannot have minimum performance standards for wind turbines that will impose a de facto moratorium on commercial scale wind turbines. Another point, as reported by the Cape Cod Times, most of the ponds on Cape Cod and in New England are contaminated with mercury from coal-fired power plants. There are overwhelming health impacts to not facilitating renewable energy projects. The Mass Department of Energy Resources has a model bylaw that should act as a template for this process. Thank you very much for this opportunity to comment.
Thank you. Kyle Shergren?
My name's Kyle Shergren, as we just went over. I'm going to throw a curveball here. Everybody's up here talking about wind energy and renewable energy, and my wife and I have been trying to, unfortunately, health's been keeping me back, start a recyclable and an energy nonprofit organization think tank. And one of the ideas that our small little group, we haven't organized yet, so we don't have a name, have came up with would answer a lot of questions that have, like jobs, industry, noise, and all this other stuff, as if we look to another area for renewable energy that we have the resources there could be commodities right here already on Cape Cod, and one is the Bourne dump and the Sandwich energy plant, the Myron energy plant. There's already 2 of these that I know of. I'm sure there's more in America operating successfully and environmentally friendly. And what you have there is the methane gas from the dump. You get it over to the plant that's already right over there in Sandwich. You convert the plant furnaces or burners that are there now to the methane gas burners. You've already got a rail system there that you can use the gas cars that bring the gas from the dump over to there. And that plant used to power every single thing that used electricity on Cape Cod, plus up and down the shore. And now it just sits there. I think they use it maybe twice a year. And, you know, that's been in the papers about being taken off the tax rolls and a number of other things. So it's just a thought. Might be crazy, but I'm just wondering if anybody ever thinks about other areas of renewable energy other than the wind turbines. And that's about all I got there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Casey Myers.
Sorry, I didn't mean to write my name.
Daniel Webb.
Hi, my name is Dan Webb. I'm a native and a resident of Falmouth. My company, Notice Clean Energy LLC, operates a 1.65 megawatt wind turbine in the Falmouth Technology Park. It's a Vestas model V82, identical to the machines operated by the town of Falmouth. I appreciate the opportunity to comment tonight. First, I'd like to just refute a couple of things I've heard earlier. It's been said a few times that this industry is unregulated. My project for one turbine went through a 5-year permitting process at the local, state, and federal level. That process required 3 law firms, about a dozen consultants, $200,000. There is absolutely nothing unregulated about this industry. If you build any structure in this state that is visible from any historic district at any distance, you are under the jurisdiction both of your town historical commission and the Massachusetts Historical Commission. So I just want to refute that notion that this is not regulated. These projects are reviewed by both the Massachusetts Fish and Wildlife and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, as well as numerous other agencies. Another thing I'd like to refute is this thing that's been floated that that the town of Falmouth turbines were located contrary to the manufacturer's siting policies. That is just a complete fiction. These machines cost about $3 million. Vestas is the world's largest manufacturer of wind turbines. They are a very corporate and very conservative outfit. Before they will even consider selling you a machine, they go through an exhaustive site review. They look at your site plan. They need meteorological data signed by a professional meteorologist. They won't even talk to you unless you have an appropriate site. It was mentioned that General Electric did not want to sell a turbine to the town of Falmouth. That's because GE simply made a decision that they are not interested in the onesie, twosie market. Most manufacturers aren't. They sell turbines 50 or 100 at a time, and they have no interest in selling one. That has no bearing on how well the town of Falmouth sited their machines. Going to the letter that I've submitted earlier, setback is the primary tool to control impacts from wind energy facilities. The Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, the DOER, has a model bylaw for wind energy facilities published in March 2009. Surely that model bylaw created by our Commonwealth should be the starting point, the basis for any new policy. That model bylaw in section 3.10.3, setbacks, says that the setback should be 3 times the height of the turbine from the nearest existing residential structure. So we have that template. It can be debated, but we should recognize that template exists at the state level. There are very few locations on Cape Cod which can satisfy that 3 times tip height setback. A setback of 3,000 feet from the nearest residential receptor is simply a de facto prohibition on utility-scale wind in Cape Cod. It may not be intended as that, but that's what it is. If you sit down on Google Earth and look for a site that would satisfy that, other than perhaps on the military reservation, you will not find any sites. Utility-scale wind is new in this area, but it has been done before. Various communities in Massachusetts have this experience. The largest wind turbine in Massachusetts is Hull 2. It's a 1.8 megawatt machine, also made by Vestas, and it is located approximately 500 feet from a multi-story apartment building. In the letter that I submitted, I provided a copy of a letter from Hull Town Hall stating that their experience with that has been positive and that they have not had complaints. I also submitted a letter from the Director of Facilities at Mass Maritime and from Bourne Town Hall stating that they have had no complaints with the Mass Maritime machine. That's a 660 kilowatt machine. It is located 500 feet from the nearest home in the midst of a college campus. So those are real world experiences within our own state that I think should be considered. Concerns have been reported about potential health effects from these machines, and that has to be taken very seriously. Anybody's health has to be taken seriously. And those concerns appear to be reflected in the extraordinary protections proposed in MPS E1.7, the clear area, and E1.8, noise. Something I'd like to point out that seems to be not well known, the Australian National Health and Medical Research Council published a report in July 2010. I've included that report in my letter. An excerpt from the summary of that report. The statement concludes that there is currently no published scientific evidence to link wind turbines with adverse health effects. This point has been mentioned before, but I want to bring it up again briefly. There are known risks and health consequences that will result from hindering the development of renewable energy resources. The National Seashore has been mentioned several times tonight. I want to read you a brief excerpt from an article from the Cape Cod Times on April 12, 2007. Quote, visitors to the Cape Cod National Seashore expect the pristine, so it might come as a shock to tourists this summer to see signs at ponds within the park warning them not to eat any of the freshwater fish because of high levels of mercury contamination. But they really shouldn't be surprised because it's a region-wide problem with the fish in 10,175 lakes, ponds, and reservoirs and 46,207 river miles in the 6 New England states and New York, all under mercury contamination advisories. Most of the pollution is not homegrown, but drifts in, mostly from coal-fired power plants. So that's just one example of a point we need to keep in mind, which is not deploying renewable energy also has risks and impacts. Cape Cod has the finest wind resource in New England and a long history of using wind power. Now, people have referred to the nature of Cape Cod. I was born in Falmouth. I've lived here my entire life, and I respect that. Thoreau wrote in 1865 in his book, Cape Cod, quote, the most conspicuous objects on the land were a distant windmill or a meeting house standing alone, for only they could afford to occupy an exposed place. Now, yes, those were smaller windmills, but that goes to show that Cape Cod has a very long history of industrial, commercial use of wind. I think it would be a shame if overly restrictive policy prevented the use of this rich natural resource. I would encourage the Commission to review the DOER model bylaw and to consider the geopolitical, economic, and climate-related risks caused by our national addiction to fossil fuels, not just imported oil, but fossil fuels, and to loosen the extraordinary proposed minimum performance standards. Thank you very much.
All right. Robert Robson, is it, or Rosen? Robinson? McCann Street in Hyannis? Not here. Okay, Kathy Sherman?
My name's Kathy Sherman, and I am formerly a pharmacologist. I was working in the development of drugs for Alzheimer's, and what I emailed you today is a comparison of noise from wind turbines to transport noise, showing that people react to wind turbine noise at levels of 40 decibels, and that's just added compared to air traffic noise. At 70 decibels, they would react to that the same. Wind turbine noise is not really regulated by the rules that we have. Part of it may be because of the characteristic frequency of it, and part of it is its effects at night. But if we're going to have a new community noise, like if you wanted to build another Route 6 past my house, we'd have a discussion about it. And I think we need to have a discussion to refute some of the things that were just said about wind energy as an alternative fuel source even. I don't want to do that. I'm not a very good public speaker, but I do want you to at a minimum have the 3,000 feet setback, because there's studies from Vinyl Haven, Maine, where the noise did not decrease. It actually stayed louder, and that was a Department of Energy sponsored study. In Mars Hill, Maine, out to about 3,600 feet, 95% of the people had a reduction in quality of life, and about 80% of them had the insomnia and other health effects. And in DeKalb, Illinois, another example of the distance thing is that the wind developer offered the property value guarantee out to 4,000 feet. Because in DeKalb, they'd already had experience with wind turbine noise. So I do hope that this will be an ongoing discussion how to make it safe. And about the new technology, I'm sorry, but that only says that there are components to this wind turbine noise that aren't acknowledged, because the decibel rating has been 103 since '07. I mean, I think that they've figured that that's how loud they can go. So that's, I hope that we can have more of an ongoing discussion. And I would like to send you, I've been trying to write up a summary of some of the noise and health issues. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody that has not been called upon that thinks they should have been? Is there anybody here who should have been called on that wasn't? You'd like to come up? You won't be heard unless you get over there.
Okay. Chair, she spoke at the very beginning. I asked a question, but did that mean I can't speak?
No, it does not mean you can't speak.
Okay, I'll be very brief. I know you're all exhausted. I will submit a letter from Vestas, Liz Argo, from Orleans. I will submit a letter from Vestas that will help make the manual mistake understood, so that will help you there. I would also like everybody to understand that, yes, I do, upon occasion, have a chance to work with CVEC because I've become knowledgeable in wind. So the fact that they once in a while hire me as a consultant, I think, speaks in my favor to be able to speak to this board on wind. I looked at the minimum performance standards to understand what you had in front of you. I went to the Cape Cod Commission Act, and it obviously, it does charge you with protecting the values, promoting the public health, safety, and general welfare, and maintaining and enhancing sound local and regional economies, ensuring balanced economic development. I would go back to what Mark Kuhl said of Falmouth, that you have a very difficult challenge indeed in weighing both sides of that. That is a difficult balance that you're going to have to find. So, but I'll get right into the threshold standard that you are setting, and I will say that I would take an experience that I have had personally where a Met Tower needed to be brought in and a sound study needed to be conducted within a week so as not to hold up a construction team that was ready to come down the following week. Now, we were able to put in a Met Tower, do the test, get the sound results, and not hold up construction. Will we still be able to do that when there has to be a Cape Cod Commission review for every Met Tower across the Cape? I doubt it. The safety setbacks, the appropriate safety setback standards are clearly not 2 kilometers or 1¼ miles. The 1.5 times the height to the tip of the blade, I do believe, is too strict based on your definitions. The recreation area needs to be reconsidered because, as we've all discussed, one of the popular places to put wind turbines with historic success is near recreation areas. Those are open areas with good wind resources, and so when you start taking those opportunities away, then you really restrict the spots that we're going to find on Cape Cod. And you've heard plenty of testimony here today that there are not going to be many spots on Cape Cod. We all know that. I think that it will help guide your setback limitations and really comprehending the safety ramifications of turbines by looking at the insurance trends. Turbines are insurable, and they are financially, the insurance is financially affordable. Of course, this is not the case with our nuclear power plants, and this is not a nuclear power plant. It is a wind turbine. It can be insured. The safety setbacks do not have to be quite so onerous. Sound. I don't think I agree with what you've heard here tonight. No attempt at a standard for sound levels relative to a turbine installation should be attempted by the Commission at this time. The technical bulletin, as Paul has said, Mr. Niedzwiecki has said, is where those kinds of standards need to be so that they can be adjusted as the actual science comes forward and tells you what those safety setbacks, those sound level setbacks should be. Shadow flicker, I am very curious as to who triggers the flicker mitigation to then restrict the flicker. Is it going to be, it's just not language that doesn't exist in your MPS, so I think you need to look again at that MPS and make sure that the language about how that mitigation plan is triggered, because as we all know, we do have some history of disgruntled members of the community triggering some studies, and it's conceivable that the flicker mitigation could be triggered just out of spite. Decommissioning plan is in keeping with conscientious turbine construction projects. Now, whether it should be a bond, as Mr. Elric said, or a plan that goes in, I think that's something that should be further looked into as well. The municipal waiver, I still maintain that the 100 kilowatts is too small, that the new 100 kilowatt machine is the 250 kilowatt machine on the same size tower, so you've imposed a restriction that's not keeping up with the times. The HPC, the historic, to change the historic section, I think that's acceptable, but I mean, the point is that we are all challenged by the fact that, as was said by the Old Kings Highway Regional District Commission, the chair, standing in chair, at the hearing for the Agricultural Research Corporation, someone is going to see a turbine anywhere we put them on Cape Cod. So again, we get into the difficulty of definitions. I think that we all agree that wind needs to go forward. I can get passionate, I could cry, because I have asthma and I take my kids to the hospital because they suffer. I think that we do have to get forward on this wind thing. Are we going to solve all the world's problems with a couple of wind turbines on Cape Cod? No. Is it going to inspire people to do the right thing, to think about driving better cars that are better adapted? Yes, I've seen that in my work as a renewable energy installer. Every time I put renewable energy on somebody's home, they start thinking like their life depends on it, and our lives do depend on it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we're getting towards the time that we need to maybe continue this hearing to another time? Peter, do you want to see if we can do that?
Yes. Thank everyone for their comments and input, verbal as well as written. I would move to continue the public hearing to February 3rd, 2010. I think that's 11.
Yeah.
Thank you for the correction. At 3 p.m. at the Assembly of Delegates Chamber of the 1st District Courthouse, Main Street, Barnstable, and I believe that there is another member who has... February 3rd is the wrong date.
Okay, you said 3rd. Okay, you corrected yourself. Sorry. Never mind.
All right.
You're up.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I would suggest, rather than going ahead and going to back to this full committee hearing, that we remand the matter back to the planning and regulatory committees to study the information that was given to us 2 days in advance of this thing. And if we have to have a meeting between now and the next commission meeting, fine, I'll do it. I don't like to because I drive in from Wellfleet. But I would much rather have this thing remanded and have a little time spent to study it and look at it than I would just pass it on to the next meeting, which is going to be an open forum like this.
I think that...
Roger, you're a mind reader. We have that coming.
Okay.
So, go ahead, Mr. Chair.
We do have a motion in front of us that's been seconded. Is there any further discussion on it?
I will repeat the motion to continue the public hearing to February 3rd, 2011 at 3 p.m. at the Assembly of Delegates Chamber for the 1st District Courthouse, Main Street, Barnstable, Mass.
Is that clear for everybody?
And it was seconded.
For discussion.
Microphone, please.
Discussion, I looked in my packet and I did not have Daniel Webb's letter, which I would like to have to read before our next working session. And we also did not have Kathy Sherman's email, which I think we should have a copy of. Thank you.
Good. That's duly noted. Thank you very much. All right, any further comments? All in favor will signify by saying
Wait
aye.
a minute, Mr. Chairman, please. We have gotten not only that, but I would like to have a copy of the minutes of this meeting in our hands as quickly as possible, so that if we do go to a subcommittee meeting, which I hope we will have not only what has been presented to us, but also the information we got here today.
Yes. And I understand that that will happen.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome. All right. Are we ready to vote? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? It's unanimous vote. And I think, do you want to, Roger, do you want to move that we also remand, excuse me, Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I would be happy to move that we remand.
You can second it. Elizabeth's going to make.
Oh, good.
I got it written down,
I defer
Roger.
to Elizabeth. She's got better earrings than I have.
I would like to move that we convene the Joint Planning Regulatory Committee, which has met before discussing this issue, and to begin discussion of the testimony received at this meeting, and that we meet on January 31st at 10 a.m. at the Commission offices.
Second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded twice. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? No abstentions? It's a vote. And before we adjourn, I just want to, you're pointing a finger. Elizabeth,
I just
I'm sorry.
have one comment. I understand that we do have to come up with regulations, because what really worries me is that if we don't come up with something, this will be taken away from local control, county control, and the Energy Facility Siting Board will take it over, and we will have no input whatsoever into what goes where, when, and how. So it's critical that we do come up with regulations. I know that we will probably never be fully in agreement over all the regulations involved with wind turbines and setbacks and that type of issue, but we will discuss them at our next sorry, it must be getting late, at our next meeting. But it is critical that we do come up with regulations, because if we don't have them, then we have totally given up any local control over siting of turbines.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. That's a very important point. Anybody else that wants to say anything? I just would like to say one thing before we adjourn, and I want to thank everybody who sat here since 3 o'clock this afternoon, and for the comments that have been made, and to my colleagues here for sitting here and receiving those comments, and we will take them and deal with them as we have just outlined. So a move to adjourn, please. Oh, wait just a minute. I want to say thank you to the staff, several staff that have participated in this. Yes.
Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't
Christie
mind,
has...
just one item under other business. I'll make it very brief. It's an administrative item. I'm sorry, Christie Senatori, Chief Regulatory Officer for the Commission. There's a project under Commission review right now. It's called Gladstone LP. It was referred to the Commission on August 31st, 2010. The hearing period was opened by hearing officer and is due to be closed by hearing officer later this month. A completed application has not been submitted to the Commission in time to hold a substantive public hearing before the hearing period should expire. The project has requested that the project be withdrawn from review at the local level and from review at the Commission level. The withdrawal has been perfected, and I would just ask that you vote today to accept the withdrawal of the Gladstone LP project at 31 Aaron's Way in Yarmouth from Commission review.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstain?
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And this was a motion to adjourn. Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Thank you.